Imagine this. You're trapped in a never-ending cycle where no matter how kind, patient, or understanding you are, it's never enough. You give, they take. You apologize, they blame. You try to reason, they twist your words. It feels like walking on eggshells, constantly questioning yourself, constantly drained, constantly wondering, what am I doing wrong? But here's the truth. You're not the problem. You're dealing with someone who doesn't see relationships as a partnership, but as a battlefield where they must always win. You could give them the world and they'd still demand more. You could sacrifice your happiness and they'd call you selfish. And the moment you push back, the moment you demand respect, suddenly you are the villain. Being nice won't change a narcissist. No amount of patience, love, or understanding will turn them into the person you want them to be. They don't change because they don't want to change. But there is something that stops them in their tracks. There is a way to break free from their grip, to reclaim your power, to finally escape their cycle of control. And today, I'm going to tell you exactly what that is. Narcissists thrive on control, not kindness. They are not like the average person who responds to warmth with warmth, who feels gratitude when treated with generosity. Instead, they see kindness as something to be used, something to exploit. It's a currency in their world, but one they never intend to return. When you show them compassion, they don't think this person is good to me, I should be good to them. No, they think, this person is giving me something for free. Let's see how much more I can take. Narcissists live in a world where control is everything. They don't just want admiration, they want power over how you feel, how you think, and how you react. Their sense of self is fragile despite the arrogance they display, and they maintain their superiority by keeping you in a position of uncertainty. They do this through manipulation, gaslighting, guilt-tripping, and playing the victim. And every time you try to reason with them, every time you try to show them kindness in the hopes that they will change, you're unknowingly feeding their power. Imagine being in a relationship with a narcissist, whether romantic, familial, or professional. You start by assuming that they operate the way you do, that if you treat them with respect, they will eventually do the same. Maybe you even think their coldness or cruelty is a defense mechanism, but deep down they're just hurting, and all they need is a little more understanding. So you give them patience, you give them your time, you forgive their harsh words, you make excuses for their actions, telling yourself they didn't mean to hurt you, they just had a bad day. You go out of your way to be accommodating, believing that if they see how much you care, they'll change, but they don't. Instead, they start testing your limits. Maybe at first it's subtle, dismissing your opinions, making little comments that undermine your confidence. When you don't push back, they escalate. The more kindness you show, the more entitled they feel to take advantage of you. They begin to demand more of your energy, your emotions, and your time. But when you need something in return, they are nowhere to be found. You ask for the same patience, the same understanding you've given them, but they act as if you're being unreasonable. They twist the situation so that somehow you end up feeling guilty for even asking. And because you've been conditioned to believe that if you're just a little nicer, they'll finally soften, you keep giving. This cycle can go on for years. The reason it works so well is that narcissists are masterful at exploiting the basic decency of others. They understand that most people don't want to be cruel, that most people would rather solve a conflict with kindness than confrontation. They use this knowledge against you, pushing you further and further until you no longer recognize yourself. You become so focused on trying to win their approval that you don't even see how much of yourself you've lost in the process. It's important to understand that narcissists do not view relationships the way healthy people do. In a normal relationship, both people contribute and support each other. There's a balance of give and take. But to a narcissist, relationships are a tool for dominance. They don't want an equal partner. They want control. They want to be the center of attention, the one who dictates the terms. And they will never respect someone who gives them unconditional kindness because in their mind, kindness is not strength. it is submission. This is why trying to change them with niceness is not only ineffective, but actually makes things worse. The more you accommodate their behavior, the more they believe they are entitled to your patience. They don't see it as a gift, they see it as permission to continue taking. They don't think, wow, this person is so understanding, I should change. Instead, they think, good, they're still playing by my rules. So what happens when you finally reach your breaking point? When you try to stand up for yourself? At first, they might try to pull you back in with charm, reminding you of the rare moments when they were kind to you. If that doesn't work, they'll try to make you feel guilty, blaming you for their behavior, insisting that you are the problem. If you continue to resist, they'll turn to cruelty, making you question your worth, your memories, and even your sanity. They will do anything to regain control, because control is all they care about. This is why the only way to truly deal with a narcissist is to take back your power, and that begins with recognizing that your kindness will never be enough to change them. It's not because you're not good enough. It's not because you didn't try hard enough. It's because they don't want to change. They don't want equality. They don't want mutual respect. They want control. And as long as you're giving them kindness without boundaries, you're giving them exactly what they want. Real change happens when you stop playing their game, when you stop justifying their actions, when you stop believing that if you just love them enough, they'll finally see your worth. The truth is, they see your worth already. That's why they've been trying so hard to keep you down. The moment you stop giving them your emotional energy, the moment you stop letting their actions dictate your self-worth, that's the moment you begin to break free. Kindness is a beautiful thing, but it is not a weapon against a narcissist. It will never make them reflect, it will never make them change, and it will never protect you from their manipulation. The only thing that will, understanding that their power over you only exists if you let it. Once you reclaim your self-respect and stop allowing their behavior to dictate your actions, they lose their control. And that is the one thing a narcissist fears the most. Setting boundaries is the most powerful tool you have when dealing with a narcissist. Unlike normal relationships where boundaries are understood as a sign of mutual respect, narcissists see them as obstacles to their control. They thrive on manipulating situations, bending others to their will, and keeping people uncertain. If you don't have boundaries, they can walk all over you without resistance. And when you do set boundaries, they will test, challenge, and even punish you for trying to reclaim your power. This is why most people who deal with narcissists struggle to enforce boundaries. They fear the backlash, the guilt trips, the silent treatment, or even outright aggression that follows. But the truth is, without strong, non-negotiable boundaries, you will always be at their mercy. The reason boundaries are so essential is that narcissists don't respect unwritten rules of decency. In healthy relationships, people naturally consider each other's feelings. They don't need to be told not to belittle, manipulate, or gaslight one another. But narcissists operate differently. They see kindness as weakness and take advantage of those who are too forgiving. That's why you have to draw clear, firm lines that tell them exactly where you stand and what you will not tolerate. These boundaries aren't just about protecting yourself physically or emotionally. They are about reclaiming control over your own mind and decisions. At first, setting boundaries with a narcissist can feel impossible. They are used to getting their way, and they know exactly how to push your buttons. Maybe they use guilt, reminding you of all they've supposedly done for you. Maybe they play the victim, acting as if your boundaries are a cruel punishment against them. Or perhaps they lash out, using anger and intimidation to make you back down. They will do whatever it takes to make you question your decision. That's why boundaries must be set with absolute clarity and enforced with consistency. One of the most important things to understand about setting boundaries with a narcissist is that they will not accept them easily. They are not the type to say, I understand and I respect your wishes. Instead, they will test them at every opportunity. If you tell them you will not tolerate insults, they might not insult you outright, but will use sarcasm, passive aggression, or disguised criticism. If you tell them you need space, they may invade it just to see if you will enforce your rule. They are not trying to understand your limits, they are trying to find a way around them. This is why enforcement is just as important as setting the boundary itself. Many people try to set boundaries but fail to follow through when they are tested. If a narcissist realizes that you are not serious, they will push harder, knowing that eventually you will cave. This is why you must be unwavering in your commitment. If you say you will not engage in arguments, then disengage the moment they try to bait you into one. If you say you will not tolerate disrespect, then walk away the second they cross the line. No explanations, no second chances, no backtracking. The moment you start explaining or defending your boundary, they see it as an opportunity to negotiate, and for them, negotiation is just another form of manipulation. The hardest part of maintaining boundaries is dealing with the emotional backlash. Narcissists are skilled at making you feel guilty, selfish, or unreasonable for protecting yourself. They may accuse you of being uncaring, of changing for the worse, or even of betraying them. This is especially difficult if the narcissist is a family member, a partner, or someone you've known for years. But you have to remember that their reaction is not a reflection of your wrongdoing. It is proof that your boundaries are working. They are upset because they can no longer manipulate you the way they used to. Another crucial aspect of setting boundaries is learning to detach emotionally. Narcissists thrive on emotional reactions. They want to make you upset, defensive, or guilty because that keeps you engaged. The more you react, the more they know they still have control. But when you respond with indifference, when you refuse to engage in their games, you strip them of their power. This doesn't mean you have to be cold or cruel. It simply means you stop allowing them to dictate how you feel. A key mistake many people make when setting boundaries with a narcissist is expecting them to change as a result. They think that if they set a boundary, the narcissist will eventually learn to respect it. But narcissists don't change because they suddenly realize they've been wrong. They change only when they realize they can no longer get what they want. Some may adapt their tactics, pretending to respect your boundaries while secretly finding new ways to manipulate you. Others may escalate their behavior, trying to punish you for standing up to them. And some may distance themselves entirely, seeking out new people who are easier to control. What matters most is that you do not waver. The moment you give in, even once, the narcissist knows that your boundaries are flexible. They learn that all they have to do is push hard enough, long enough, and you will eventually break. This is why it is so important to make your boundaries clear, firm, and absolute. There is no room for negotiation. There is no room for second chances. Either they respect your limits or they lose access to you. Setting boundaries with a narcissist is not just about saying no. It is about reclaiming your sense of self. It is about recognizing that you are not responsible for their emotions, their reactions, or their opinions. They may try to make you feel otherwise, but the truth is, their problems are not yours to fix. Your responsibility is to yourself, to your peace, your well-being, and your self-respect. When you set and enforce strong boundaries, something remarkable happens. The narcissist may continue to try their old tricks, but they no longer affect you the same way. You stop feeling the need to explain yourself. You stop feeling the guilt that used to weigh you down. You realize that their anger, their manipulation, and their tactics are simply tools they use to maintain control. And when those tools no longer work, they lose their grip on you. Narcissists thrive on validation. They are not just looking for admiration, they are looking for control over how people perceive them. Their entire sense of self is built on external approval, and they carefully craft an image that keeps them in a position of superiority. Whether they play the role of the successful, charming leader or the misunderstood victim, their goal is always the same: to ensure that others see them the way they want to be seen. And when you seek their approval, when you try to prove yourself to them, you unknowingly hand them exactly what they need to maintain their power over you. The moment you care about what a narcissist thinks of you, you are giving them control over your emotions. They understand this dynamic instinctively. They know that as long as you are seeking their validation, you will tolerate more than you should. You will excuse their bad behavior, you will overlook their cruelty, and you will keep coming back for more, hoping that this time They will finally acknowledge your worth, but they never will, at least not in any lasting way. They will give you just enough approval to keep you hooked, then withdraw it again to keep you chasing after it. This cycle is deliberate, and it is one of the most effective tools they use to maintain dominance over people. If you have ever dealt with a narcissist, you have likely experienced this firsthand. Maybe it was a boss who never acknowledged your hard work but made sure to notice every mistake. Maybe it was a parent who only showed affection when you met their impossible expectations. Maybe it was a partner who showered you with love one moment and made you feel worthless the next. No matter the situation, the pattern is always the same. They pull you in with moments of approval, making you feel seen and valued, only to rip that feeling away when you least expect it. And because you have already tasted their validation, you feel desperate to get it back. That desperation is what keeps you trapped. The key to breaking free from this cycle is to stop seeking their approval entirely. This is not easy, especially if you have spent years trying to earn their respect, their love, or even just basic decency from them. But the reality is, their approval is not real. It is conditional, temporary, and used solely as a means to control you. The more you chase it, the more power they have. The moment you stop caring what they think, however, you take that power away. And one of the biggest fears people have when dealing with narcissists is the fear of being misunderstood. Narcissists are masters at twisting reality, making you look like the problem and turning others against you. They will paint you as unreasonable, selfish, or even cruel the moment you stop playing by their rules. This fear can make it difficult to detach from their validation because deep down you want them to see the truth. You want them to acknowledge that you are never the villain, that you are only ever trying to be fair, that you didn't deserve the way they treated you. But waiting for that moment is a trap. It will never come. They will never give you that closure because doing so would mean admitting that they were wrong, and narcissists do not admit fault. Instead of trying to prove yourself to them, you must shift your focus inward. Ask yourself why their opinion matters to you in the first place. Is it because you have been conditioned to believe that your worth is tied to their approval? Is it because you were raised in an environment where love was given only under certain conditions? Is it because they have spent years convincing you that their version of reality is the only one that matters? Understanding why you seek their approval is the first step in letting it go. Once you begin to detach from their validation, you will notice a change in their behavior. At first, they may try harder to pull you back in. They will test you, throwing out small bits of praise or kindness to see if you will take the bait. If that doesn't work, they may shift to guilt, reminding you of all they have done for you, making you feel as though you are abandoning them. And if that fails, they may resort to anger, attempting to punish you for no longer playing your role. All of this is designed to make you question yourself, to make you doubt your decision, to pull you back into their control. This is the moment where many people falter. They feel the weight of the guilt, the fear of losing the relationship entirely, the anxiety of being painted as the bad person. But this is also the moment of true freedom. If you can resist the urge to seek their approval in these moments, if you can sit with the discomfort and remind yourself that their perception of you is not your responsibility, you break the cycle for good. One of the most liberating realizations you can have is that you do not need their validation to be whole. Their approval does not define your worth. Their opinion does not dictate your reality. When you stop looking to them for validation, you start looking to yourself. You begin to trust your own judgment rather than constantly second-guessing yourself based on their shifting moods. You start making decisions based on what is right for you rather than what will keep them happy. You reclaim the parts of yourself that you lost trying to please them. The narcissist's worst nightmare is a person they can no longer control. When they see that you no longer need their approval, they will panic. They will throw everything they have at you, trying to pull you back into the game. But once you realize that the game was never worth playing in the first place, they lose their power entirely. And in that moment, you finally take yours back. Narcissists thrive on emotional reactions. They don't just want to control people's actions, they want to control their emotions. When they can get a reaction out of you, whether it's anger, sadness, guilt, or frustration, they know they still have power over you. That's why one of the most effective ways to break free from their grip is to master emotional detachment. When you stop reacting emotionally to their provocations, you strip them of their ability to manipulate you. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you stop feeling emotions altogether. It doesn't mean you become numb or indifferent to everything. What it means is that you no longer allow the narcissist to dictate your emotional state. You stop giving them the satisfaction of seeing you flustered, upset, or desperate. Instead, you learn to control your responses, to remain calm and unbothered no matter how much they try to push your button. This shift in power dynamics is something they cannot stand, because their entire strategy relies on you reacting in ways they can exploit. To achieve emotional detachment, the first thing you must do is recognize the narcissist patterns. They are predictable in their tactics, even if their methods seem chaotic. They will provoke you in different ways, through insults, gaslighting, guilt-tripping, silent treatment, or even sudden bursts of kindness meant to lure you back in. Every one of these actions is a test, a way of seeing how much control they still have over your emotions. The more aware you are of these tactics, the easier it becomes to recognize them for what they are. Manipulation, not genuine interactions. Once you recognize their patterns, the next step is to stop engaging emotionally. This is where many people struggle. Narcissists are experts at making things personal. They know exactly what to say to get under your skin. They might bring up past mistakes, twist your words, or accuse you of things that aren't true. The moment you try to defend yourself, explain, or prove them wrong, you are already playing their game. That's what they want. To pull you into a cycle of arguing, justifying, and seeking their approval. But when you refuse to engage, when you respond with indifference, they lose their power over you. One of the most effective techniques for emotional detachment is the gray rock method. This approach involves making yourself as uninteresting and unresponsive as possible to the narcissist. Think of a gray rock. Dull, motionless, unremarkable. When a narcissist tries to provoke you, you give them nothing in return. No emotional outbursts, no arguments, no desperate attempts to make them see your side. You keep your responses short, neutral, and non-reactive. Instead of saying, "Why would you say something so hurtful?" you say, "Okay." Instead of getting drawn into a debate, you simply nod and move on. The goal is to make interactions with you so unrewarding that they lose interest in trying to manipulate you. Of course, the narcissist won't accept this shift easily. When they see that their usual tactics aren't working, they will escalate. They might become more aggressive, say crueler things, or try to guilt trip you into reacting. They might suddenly act extremely kind, trying to lure you back in with false affection. This is their way of testing whether your detachment is real. If you cave and react emotionally, they know they still have control. That's why consistency is key. No matter what they do, whether they lash out in anger or suddenly act like they care, you must remain emotionally neutral. Another crucial part of emotional detachment is understanding that you do not need closure from the narcissist. Many people stay trapped in toxic dynamics because they keep hoping for a final conversation, a moment where the narcissist finally acknowledges the harm they've caused. But that moment will never come. Narcissists do not take accountability in a genuine way. If they ever apologize, it's usually to manipulate, not because they truly feel remorse. If you keep waiting for closure, you are keeping yourself emotionally tied to them. True closure comes from within, from accepting that you will never get what you hoped for from them, and that's okay. Detaching emotionally also means stopping the habit of overthinking their actions. When you are caught up in a narcissist's web, it's easy to spend hours analyzing everything they say and do. Why did they say that? What did they mean? Do they actually care? But all of this overanalyzing keeps you emotionally engaged. The truth is, their actions are not that deep. They are simply doing whatever they think will get them the response they want in the moment. Once you stop assigning meaning to their words and actions, you free yourself from the endless cycle of trying to understand them. A powerful mindset shift in emotional detachment is realizing that their behavior is not about you, It's about them. Narcissists treat people based on their own insecurities, their own need for control, and their own inability to form healthy relationships. Their cruelty, their manipulation, their gaslighting, it's not a reflection of your worth, but a reflection of who they are. When you internalize this truth, their words and actions lose their sting. You stop feeling the need to prove yourself to them because you understand that their opinion was never based on reality in the first place. Self-care plays a critical role in maintaining emotional detachment. When you have a strong sense of self-worth, when you nurture your own happiness, when you surround yourself with people who genuinely care about you, the narcissist's influence weakens. They want you to feel isolated, dependent, and desperate for their approval. But when you invest in yourself, when you build a life where their presence is insignificant, their ability to affect you diminishes. Engaging in activities that bring you peace, whether it's exercise, meditation, creative pursuits, or spending time with supportive people, helps reinforce the emotional independence you are building. Setting emotional boundaries is just as important as setting physical ones. You must decide what you will and won't allow in your emotional space. If they start yelling, you leave the conversation. If they start guilt-tripping, you don't respond. If they try to love bomb you, you recognize it for what it is and don't get swept up in the illusion. Every time you enforce these emotional boundaries, you reinforce the message that they no longer have power over you. As you master emotional detachment, you will notice a shift in yourself. Situations that used to make you anxious or angry no longer have the same effect. Their words start to sound hollow. Their attempts to provoke you feel predictable rather than distressing. You start to reclaim your inner peace, realizing that your emotions are yours to control, not theirs. This is when you truly break free. Narcissists thrive on controlling emotions, and one of their most powerful weapons is their ability to provoke strong reactions from others. Whether it's anger, frustration, sadness, or guilt, any emotional response you give them serves as fuel for their manipulative games. They are experts at identifying your emotional triggers and using them to keep you entangled in their toxic cycle. When you react emotionally to their behavior, you are essentially giving them confirmation that they still hold power over you. This is why learning to master emotional detachment is one of the most effective ways to break free from their grip and reclaim control over your own mind and emotions. Emotional detachment does not mean that you stop feeling emotions altogether, nor does it mean that you become numb or indifferent to everything. It means that you no longer allow the narcissist to dictate how you feel or react. It means that you recognize their manipulation for what it is and refuse to engage in their games. The moment you stop giving them the emotional reactions they crave, their control over you starts to weaken. They thrive on chaos, on knowing they can get under your skin, on seeing you struggle with their words and actions. But when you remain calm, unbothered, and unaffected, they lose their ability to manipulate you. Recognizing the narcissist's patterns is the first step to emotional detachment. They are not as unpredictable as they seem. There are clear tactics they use to provoke emotional responses. They might insult you, belittle you, or bring up past mistakes in a way designed to hurt you. They might use guilt tripping, making you feel like you owe them something, or that you are a bad person for standing up for yourself. They might engage in gaslighting, trying to distort your reality so you start doubting yourself. They might alternate between being overly nice and suddenly cold, keeping you off balance and emotionally invested. Once you recognize these behaviors as deliberate manipulation tactics, you can begin to detach emotionally from them. When you stop engaging in their emotional games, they will test you. They will push harder, trying to get a reaction from you in any way possible. They may escalate their insults, twist your words, or even try to get others involved in their narrative. This is where emotional control becomes essential. The key is to remain indifferent. When they try to bait you into an argument, refuse to take the bait. When they throw insults at you, act as if their words have no effect. When they try to guilt trip you, remind yourself that their manipulation is not your burden to carry. This doesn't mean you have to be physically present while they do this. Sometimes emotional detachment means walking away entirely. A highly effective technique for emotional detachment is known as the gray rock method. The idea behind this technique is to become as uninteresting and unresponsive as possible, like a dull, lifeless gray rock. Narcissists feed on drama, emotional energy, and reactions. If you stop providing them with that energy, they will eventually lose interest in trying to manipulate you. This means giving short, neutral responses instead of engaging in argument. If they try to provoke you with an insult, you respond with a simple, okay, or that's your opinion. If they try to drag you into a debate, you don't engage. Your goal is to make interactions with you so unrewarding that they move on. The narcissist will not give up easily. When they see that their usual tactics are not working, they will try different approaches. They might suddenly act kind, offering compliments or affection to lure you back into their emotional control. They might pretend to care, asking if everything is okay in an attempt to get you to open up again. If that doesn't work, they may escalate their cruelty, resorting to even more aggressive or demeaning tactics. This is a critical moment because it's when many people slip back into old patterns. The key is to remain consistent in your detachment, no matter what strategy they try to use. One of the hardest aspects of emotional detachment is letting go of the need for closure. Many people stay emotionally entangled with a narcissist because they are waiting for a final conversation, an admission of wrongdoing, or an apology that will never come. Narcissists do not take accountability in a genuine way. If they apologize, it is usually a manipulation tactic rather than true remorse. If you are waiting for them to acknowledge how they hurt you, you will stay emotionally tied to them indefinitely. The true closure comes from within, realizing that you don't need their validation, their understanding, or their approval to move on. Overthinking is another trap that keeps people emotionally engaged with narcissists. When you are caught in their cycle, you may spend hours replaying conversations in your mind, analyzing their words, and trying to understand their behavior. This only serves to keep you mentally and emotionally tied to them. The truth is, there is no deep meaning behind their actions. They do what they do simply to maintain control and feed their own ego. Once you accept that their behavior is not personal, but a reflection of their own insecurities and need for dominance, you can free yourself from the exhausting cycle of overanalyzing everything they say and do. Understanding that their actions are about them, not you, is one of the most liberating realizations you can have. A narcissist's cruelty is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of their own internal emptiness. They treat people based on their own dysfunction, not because of anything you did or didn't do. When you truly internalize this, their words and actions lose their power over you. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself to them, defend yourself against their accusations, or seek their approval. You realize that their opinion of you is irrelevant because it is based on a distorted reality they created. Taking care of yourself is a crucial part of maintaining emotional detachment. Narcissists want you to feel weak, isolated, and dependent on them for validation. When you focus on self-care, whether through exercise, meditation, hobbies, or surrounding yourself with positive and supportive people, you reinforce your emotional independence. The stronger and more fulfilled you feel in your own life, the less impact the narcissist has on your emotions. Setting emotional boundaries is just as important as setting physical ones. You must decide what you will and won't allow in your emotional space. If they try to drag you into an argument, you don't engage. If they try to guilt trip you, you don't respond. If they try to love bomb you with false affection, you recognize it for what it is and don't fall for it. Every time you enforce an emotional boundary, you send a message that their manipulation no longer works on you. With time and practice, emotional detachment becomes second nature. Situations that once caused you stress and anxiety start to lose their power. Their words no longer affect you in the same way. You start to reclaim your sense of peace, realizing that your emotions belong to you, not to them. You no longer feel the need to prove anything to them, nor do you care about how they perceive you. This is when you truly break free from their control. Narcissists thrive on power. Every interaction with them is a game of control, a carefully calculated move to keep you under their influence. They don't see relationships as a two-way street where mutual respect exists. Instead, they view them as a hierarchy where they must remain on top, ensuring that you stay beneath them emotionally and psychologically. One of the most effective ways to break free from this toxic dynamic is by setting firm, unshakable boundaries. Boundaries are the invisible lines that define what behavior you will and won't accept. They are the barriers that protect your peace, your self-respect, and your well-being from the narcissist's manipulation. But setting boundaries isn't just about saying no. It's about enforcing consequences when those boundaries are crossed. The biggest mistake people make when dealing with a narcissist is believing that boundaries can be set with words alone. A narcissist will test, push, and outright ignore verbal boundaries because they do not respect them. They see words as weak. You can tell them 100 times that you won't tolerate a certain behavior, but if there is no consequence when they violate that boundary, they will continue to do as they please. To a narcissist, your words mean nothing unless they see action backing them up. This is why enforcing boundaries with firm consequences is the only way to truly get them to take you seriously. If a narcissist knows there is no real consequence, they will keep pushing until you break. But if they see that crossing a boundary results in an immediate and unwavering consequence, they will either back off or reveal their true nature in a way that allows you to walk away completely. Narcissists will do everything in their power to make you feel guilty for setting boundaries. They will accuse you of being selfish, cruel, or unreasonable. They will act as though your boundaries are an attack on them, making you feel like you are the one in the wrong. This is a manipulation tactic designed to make you question yourself and cave under pressure. They want you to feel guilty because guilt is a tool they use to control you. If you fall into this trap, they will keep pushing your boundaries until they disappear entirely. The key is to stand firm in your decisions regardless of how they react. You are not responsible for their feelings or their inability to handle accountability. Your job is to protect yourself, not to manage their emotions. One of the most common ways narcissists test boundaries is through emotional manipulation. If you set a boundary, they will often respond with love bombing, showering you with attention and affection to make you feel bad for enforcing limits. They want you to second guess yourself, to think, maybe I was too harsh, or maybe they do care after all. But this sudden kindness is not real. It is a tactic to regain control. As soon as they feel like they have you back in their grasp, the old behaviors will return. This cycle will repeat indefinitely unless you recognize the pattern and refuse to be swayed by temporary acts of affection. The only way to maintain a boundary is to hold your ground no matter what they do to break it. Another way narcissists try to override boundaries is by playing the victim. They will exaggerate their pain, twist the situation to make it seem like you are hurting them, and even cry or beg for your sympathy. They do this because they know that good-hearted people struggle to see others suffer. They will bring up past hardships, fabricate sob stories, or claim that they are the real victim in the situation. This is all done to make you feel like you are being too harsh, that you should be nice, and lower your boundaries. But the truth is, a person who respects you would never force you to compromise your well-being just to accommodate their demands. A narcissist does not want understanding, they want control. The sooner you recognize this, the easier it becomes to stand firm in your decisions. Enforcing boundaries also means limiting access. If a narcissist continues to disrespect you, the most powerful consequence is reducing or cutting off their access to your life. This doesn't mean you have to announce a dramatic exit. It simply means creating distance. If they call, you don't have to answer. If they send manipulative messages, you don't have to respond. If they show up at your door, you don't have to let them in. Boundaries are not about controlling the narcissist's behavior. They are about controlling your own responses. You cannot force them to change, but you can decide what you will and won't tolerate in your space. Narcissists despise boundaries because they represent something they cannot stand. Autonomy. They want full control over you, and boundaries disrupt that control. This is why they will escalate their tactics when they see that you are serious about maintaining limits. They may resort to anger, intimidation, or even smear campaigns where they try to turn others against you. This is an attempt to break you down, to make you feel isolated so that you will return to them for validation. This is where inner strength becomes essential. You must remind yourself that their attacks are not a reflection of you, but of their desperation to regain control. The more they push, the more you must remain unwavering. People who have dealt with narcissists often struggle with setting boundaries because they have been conditioned to prioritize the narcissist's needs over their own. They have been trained to keep the peace, to avoid conflict, to give in just to stop the drama. But this only prolongs the suffering. True peace is not found in avoiding confrontation. It is found in standing up for yourself and refusing to be treated as less than you deserve. The discomfort of enforcing boundaries is temporary, but the freedom it brings is lasting. One of the most empowering things about setting firm boundaries is that it teaches you self-respect. Every time you enforce a boundary, you are affirming to yourself that your well-being matters. You are proving to yourself that you are strong enough to stand up against manipulation. This self-respect is what ultimately breaks the narcissist's power over you. When you believe in your worth, when you no longer tolerate disrespect, when you stop seeking their approval, they lose their ability to control you. They may lash out, they may try to pull you back in, but they will see that their usual tricks no longer work. The beauty of setting boundaries is that it doesn't just protect you from narcissists, it transforms every relationship in your life. It teaches you how to recognize healthy and unhealthy dynamics. It gives you the confidence to demand respect, to walk away from toxicity, and to build relationships with people who truly value and appreciate you. A narcissist's worst nightmare is a person they can no longer control, a person who sees through their manipulation and refuses to be a pawn in their game. By setting and enforcing boundaries, you become that person. And once you reach that point, you realize that you never needed their approval or validation in the first place. Narcissists manipulate others by controlling the narrative. They distort reality, twist facts, and use deception to ensure that they always appear in the right while others appear in the wrong. Their biggest fear is exposure because the power they wield over others relies on secrecy, confusion, and misinformation. They need to keep people in the dark about their true nature so they can continue playing the role of the victim, the hero, or the misunderstood genius. The moment their mask is removed, their influence weakens. The most effective way to shatter their control is to expose them, not necessarily through direct confrontation, but by revealing the truth through actions, awareness, and refusal to participate in their manipulations. Narcissists operate through a series of carefully crafted illusions. They present themselves as kind, charming, and charismatic to outsiders, while engaging in cruel and controlling behavior behind closed doors. And the baseline control here is people can't be trusted. Their behavior is controlled by behind closed doors. This contrast allows them to maintain their influence because anyone who calls them out appears irrational or overly sensitive. They use gaslighting to make people doubt their own experiences, making their victims feel like they are the ones at fault. They rewrite history, deny things they have said or done, and create confusion so that their victims feel lost, powerless, and unsure of what is real. When you expose them, you disrupt this illusion. You bring clarity where they try to create confusion. One of the most powerful ways to expose a narcissist is by refusing to react to their manipulation. Narcissists rely on emotional reactions to maintain their control. If they can provoke you into anger, tears, or desperation, they can use those emotions against you. They can tell others that you are unstable, dramatic, or difficult. But when you remain calm, collected, and unbothered, their tactics fall flat. They struggle to manipulate a person who does not engage with their chaos. The less you react, the more their true nature is revealed. They will try harder to get a response, and in doing so, they will expose their own cruelty and desperation. Narcissists rely on a lack of evidence to continue their deception. They often use verbal and psychological manipulation, which leaves no physical proof. This allows them to deny, distort, and twist situations to fit their narrative. But when there's clear, undeniable evidence of their behavior, their ability to manipulate weakens. Keeping records of interactions, saving messages, and documenting incidents can be powerful tools in exposing their lies. When they try to gaslight you or others, presenting the truth in a calm and factual manner strips them of their ability to control the situation. It forces them to confront the reality they try so hard to avoid. Another way to expose a narcissist is by letting their actions speak for themselves. Narcissists are often their own worst enemy because they cannot maintain their false image forever. Eventually, they will contradict themselves, reveal their true nature, or act in a way that makes their manipulation obvious. Instead of engaging in arguments or trying to convince others of the truth, simply let the narcissist reveal themselves. When they spread lies about you, remain composed and continue living your life with integrity. Over time, their behavior will become apparent to those around them. People who pay attention will notice the inconsistencies in their stories, the way they treat others, and the patterns of manipulation. One of the most challenging aspects of exposing a narcissist is dealing with their flying monkeys, people who they have manipulated into supporting them. These individuals may defend the narcissist, believe their lies, and even attack you for speaking the truth. The narcissist carefully cultivates these allies by presenting themselves as the victim and feeding them misinformation. They use charm, guilt, and deceit to turn people against you so that when you finally expose them, it appears as though you are the aggressor. The best way to handle this is not to waste energy trying to convince their supporters of the truth. Instead, focus on those who are willing to see reality. Trying to change the minds of people who are deeply under the narcissist's influence is often a losing battle. Time and consistency will reveal the truth to those who are open to it. Exposing a narcissist also means reclaiming your own story. Narcissists want to control the narrative about you. They will spread lies, twist facts, and try to define you based on their version of events. The best way to counter this is to live in a way that contradicts their false narrative. If they say you are weak, show strength. If they say you are unstable, show composure. If they say you are incapable, show capability. Your actions will always be more powerful than their words. Narcissists rely on perception, but reality always wins in the end. By focusing on living your truth rather than engaging in their games, you expose them without needing to say a word. One of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to expose a narcissist is expecting them to admit their wrongdoing. Narcissists do not take accountability. Even when confronted with undeniable proof, they will deny, deflect, or shift the blame onto others. They may pretend to acknowledge their actions momentarily, but it is only a tactic to regain control. True accountability threatens their entire identity because it forces them to face their own flaws, something they are incapable of doing. The goal of exposure should not be to make them confess. It should be to remove their power over you and those around them. A narcissist's greatest weakness is truth. They build their world on lies, illusions, and manipulation. And when those falsehoods begin to crumble, they lose control. They may lash out, play the victim, or go to extreme lengths to maintain their deception. But once people start seeing through them, their power diminishes. The key to exposing a narcissist is not engaging in their games, not feeding their need for chaos, and not allowing them to dictate your reality. The more you step back and let their true nature come to the surface, the more obvious their deception becomes. Exposing a narcissist is not about seeking revenge or forcing them to admit the truth. It is about reclaiming your power and removing yourself from their control. Their influence thrives on secrecy, manipulation, and distortion of reality, but when you refuse to play their game, their tactics begin to fail. The key is to remain calm, document the truth, and let their actions speak for themselves. Narcissists will try to twist the narrative, turn others against you, and maintain their illusion of superiority, but truth has a way of revealing itself over time. The more you stand firm in your reality, the more their deception unravels. By refusing to engage in their manipulation, refusing to react emotionally, and refusing to let them define your story, you strip them of their power. Ultimately, the best way to expose a narcissist is to live authentically, hold your ground, and let their own behavior be their downfall.